Good morning, dear students. Today I am here to express my views on the topic A Truly Beautiful Mind from NCERT. It's a wonderful chapter of NCERT book. So, what is the significance of the title A Truly Beautiful Mind? So, a truly beautiful mind is one that cares for humanity and serves for its benefits. Now, this title goes to Albert Einstein. We are going to read about Albert Einstein, and this title suits him. Now, who was Albert Einstein? We'll read about. He was a young German civil servant who took the world by storm about 100 years ago in the summer of 1905. The 26-year-old published in quick succession four groundbreaking papers about light, the motion of particles, the electrodynamics of moving bodies, and energy. His work took up only a few pages in scientific journals, but changed forever our understanding of space, time, and the entire cosmos, and transformed the name Einstein into a synonym of genius. Now, this is synonym, we call him genius. You know that he developed two theories of special relativity and general relativity. These two theories, developed by Albert Einstein at the beginning of 20th century. 50 years after his death, Albert Einstein's genius still reigns. What is the meaning of this? 50 years after his death, Albert Einstein's genius still reigns. It means that he is still alive because his contribution to the scientific world is unforgetful. That is what this title is given to Albert Einstein, A Truly Beautiful Mind. Now we'll start the chapter. Before going towards the chapter, I'll give you a short introduction of the lesson. Yes, in one of my PPT, I told you the difference between a lesson and a chapter. So, this is a lesson because we are getting some moral at last. Okay, this chapter is about Albert Einstein. He was a great scientist. The title of the chapter, A Truly Beautiful Mind, refers to Albert Einstein only. This is a short biography of his, where some of his qualities have been highlighted. Albert's interest in mathematics and physics, and also his humanitarian attribute. The title A Truly Beautiful Mind makes one wonder that how can a scientist's mind be beautiful? Of course, it is so because in this lesson we come across another aspects of Einstein. He was a humanitarian. He advocated world peace, non-violence, and that is why the title referred to him as Truly Beautiful Mind. Okay, now let's read. Albert Einstein was born on 14th March 1879 in the German city of Ulm without any indication that he was destined for greatness. Now, what is destined? Here the word is given destined. Destined means fate, a predetermined set of events that has to happen in the future. It's your fate. Now, Albert Einstein was born on 14th March 1879. He was born in a city named Ulm in Germany. When he was a child, no one could predict that one day he would become a great scientist. He was like all the other children. On the contrary, his mother thought Albert was a freak. Freak. Now, what is freak? Can anyone tell what is freak? Okay. Freak is a word used disapprovingly to talk about a person who is unusual and doesn't behave, look, or think like others. A child that is different from others. Albert's mother thought that Albert was a freak because he did not behave, talk, or look like normal people did. He was different from other children of his age, and his mother thought that he was a freak, means different from other children. He behaved abnormally. Now the words come here, abnormally. It seemed as if he had lesser intelligence in comparison to other children. To her, his head seemed much too large. Have you ever seen children like that who's having a big head? Albert's mother thought that the little boy's head was a bit too big in comparison to others' children's heads. At the age of 2.5, Einstein still wasn't talking. Yes, Albert Einstein started talking, when he was 2.5 years of age. When he finally did not learn to speak, he uttered everything twice. Uttered means spoke, all right, to say something. Finally, when Einstein started speaking, he used to repeat the words. He was in habit of speaking the words twice. Einstein did not know what to do with other children, and his playmates call him Brother Boring. His playmates means your friends who play with you. His playmates used to call him Brother Boring because he remained to himself. He did not play or talk to them. He was different from other children. So, the youngster played by himself much of the time. Yes. Now, Einstein remained up to himself all the time. He was very quiet, very boring. He used to play with himself only, all alone. Yes. He especially loved mechanical toys. From the very beginning, since his childhood, he loved mechanical toys only. Such toys in which some kind of machinery was used, such as automated cars, automated airplanes. Then, have you ever seen mechanic games also? Now, so it's available there in the market also, mechanical games. Looking at his newborn sister, Maza, he is sad to have. Fine, but where are her wheels? When his sister was born, he looked at her. He could not see her feet. He was wondering where the baby's wheels were. That means the feet of the baby, As Albert Einstein used to play with toys, and all the toys had a set of wheels. To him, Maza seems to be a toy too, and so he might have thought that where were her wheels? A headmaster once told his father that what Einstein chose as a profession wouldn't matter because he'll never make a success at anything. The headmaster of Einstein schools told Einstein's father that Einstein would never be successful, whatever profession he chose. Einstein began learning to play the violin at the age of 6 because his mother wanted him to. He later became a gifted amateur violinist, maintaining the skill throughout his life. Now, what is amateur here? Meaning is doing something for personal enjoyment. I told you that he won't mingle with other children. All right, he was not in habit of mingling with other children. All right, so here he always enjoyed with himself only rather than as profession, something which is your hobby and you do it as a pastime. Now, Einstein was a very good violinist. He learned playing the violin at the age of 6 because his mother wanted him to learn playing it. All his life, he was an amateur violinist. He played the violin as a hobby, not as a profession. Many children are like that. But Albert Einstein was not a bad pupil. He went to high school in Munich, where Einstein's family had moved when he was 15 months old and scored good marks in almost every subject. Now, Albert Einstein was a very good student. He went to a school in Munich because his family had shifted from Ulm to Munich when he was 15 months old and scored good marks in almost every subject. Just see the changes. Now, Einstein hated the school's regimentation and often clashed with his teachers. What is regimentation here? It means order or discipline taken to an extreme that we are having in our school also, means all the schools are having their discipline. So the school where Einstein went had a very strict discipline, which he disliked. Due to that, he often clashed with his teachers and opposed them. But actually, it's not good. All right. One should not oppose the discipline, the rules and regulations, and even your teachers at school. Now, at the age of 15, Einstein felt so stifled that there he left the school for good. Now, what is stifled here? It meaning is unable to breathe. When you feel suffocated, breathless. Now, he left the school for good. It means that left school forever. Forever. Now, Einstein was so suffocated in that school. He could not follow the strict discipline and so he left the school forever. The previous year, Albert's parents had moved to Milan and left their son with relatives. Now, when Albert Einstein left the school, 1 year before that, his parents had moved to another city named Milan, and which is in Italy. Now, Albert was left back in Munich with his relatives. Now, he was staying with his relatives only. After prolonged discussion, Einstein got his wish to continue his education in German speaking Switzerland, in a city which was more liberal than Munich. Liberal means willing to understand and respect others' opinion. The school in Munich was very strict. Albert could not follow the discipline over there. So he had long discussion with his family, relatives, and finally what he did? His parents agreed to put him in a school in Switzerland and language used there for communication. That was German only. Now, Einstein was highly gifted in mathematics and disinterested in physics. And after finishing school, he decided to study at a university in Zurich. Now, Einstein was good at studies. He was highly gifted in mathematics. So he was exceptionally good in mathematics, and he also had interest in physics also little bit. So only he finished school, he joined the university in Zurich. But science wasn't the only thing that appealed to the dashing young man with the walrus mustaches. Now, science was not the only thing that appealed to Einstein, who was, a very handsome young man. Other than science, he had interest in something else also. He also felt a special interest in a fellow student, Mileva Merrick, whom he found to be a clever creature. Clever creature. Yes, other than maths and physics, Albert Einstein liked one of his fellow student. Fellow student means who study with you. Her name was Mileva Merrick, and he thought that she was very clever, sharp, and intelligent too. This young Serb had come to Switzerland because the university in Zurich was one of the few in Europe when women could get degrees. Now they met at the University of Zurich, both of them, who? Mileva Merrick and Albert Einstein. And Mileva Merrick belonged to Serbia. That is why she is called a Serb. A person who belonged to Serbia, they are called as Serb. So she came from Serbia to Switzerland because the university was one of the only well-known university in Europe. Now, Einstein felt that Mileva was a friend because she also liked art, literature, or music. Now, both shared this common interest in those days. Having interest in art, literature, or music was not considered to be good. So those people who were interested in art, literature, or music used to call their opponents as Philistines. Albert Einstein family and many people in the university were not in favor of this. But so against such people, Albert Einstein and Mileva Merrick's unity helped them face the situation. The couple fell in love. Letters survive in which they put their affection into words, mixing science with tenderness. Wrote Einstein, wrote Einstein, how happy and proud I shall be when we both have brought our work on relativity to a victorious conclusion. Yes, Albert Einstein and Mileva Merrick fell in love and they exchanged love letters to express their feelings even. Now they used to write such kinds of letters where they used to mix science with their feeling. It's so funny. Now at one instant Einstein talked about his scientific invention and said that he would be very proud on that day when they would finally conclude their papers on the theory of relativity. This is something very funny. Now, in 1900, at the age of 21, Albert Einstein was a university graduate and unemployed. Now, in the year 1900, Albert Einstein was 21 years of age and he completed his graduation from the university but was unemployed. He worked as a teaching assistant, gave private lessons, and finally secured a job in 1902 as a technical expert in the patent office in Bern. Now, what is patent? A word came here, patent. It means a document which gives the right of an invention to an inventor. Now, from 1900 to 1902, Albert Einstein was working as a teaching assistant. It's given in this paragraph and gave private lessons also. Now, finally, in 1902, he got a job in Bern, and Bern is a city in Germany. He got the job of a technical officer. He got a job there as a technical officer in a patents office in Bern. Now, while he was supposed to be assessing other people's inventions, Einstein was actually developing his own ideas in secret. Einstein was supposed to check the invention done by other people and give them a patent. Now, on the other hand, secretly, he was making his own inventions also. He was making his inventions too. He is said to have jokingly called his desk drawer at work the Bureau of Theoretical Physics. Now, Einstein later said the desk on which he worked was the Office of Theoretical Physics because why? Because there only he started working on his inventions. One of the famous papers of 1905 was Einstein's special theory of relativity, according to which time and distance are not absolute. What is absolute? It means measured in itself, not in relation to anything else. Now, in the year 1905, Einstein published his first paper. It was about special theory of relativity. Now, in this publication, it was written that the measurement of time and distance is not absolute. It depends on something else. Okay, it depends on something else. Indeed, two perfectly accurate clocks will not continue to show the same time if they come together again after a journey if one of them has been moving very fast relative to the other. Yes. Now, according to the theory, if there are two clocks, try to understand this. According to the theory, if there are two clocks and both are moving, they will not show the same time. One clock will move faster than other. Yes. Now, from this followed the words most, the world's most famous formula which describes the relationship between mass and energy. Now, this theory of relativity gave us the basic formula of physics that you all know. Alright, that stands for energy, M for mass of the object and C for the speed of the light in a vacuum. Now, vacuum means where there is no air and the speed of light is vacuum is almost, that it's kilometer. Then to put it into simpler words, Einstein said that when you sit with a nice girl, just see, it's a beautiful example he has given, that when you sit with a nice girl for 2 hours, it seems like 2 minutes. Alright, on the other hand, when you sit on a hot stove for 2 minutes, it seems like 2 hours. Now that is relativity. So a person would feel the timings differently. Yes. While Einstein was solving the most difficult problems in physics, his private life was unraveling. What is unraveling? Starting to fail, about to end. Now, though he was solving the complicated problems in physics, when he was busy in solving the complicated problems in physics for the world, but his personal life started becoming problematic. He started to fail in his personal life. Albert had wanted to marry Maleva right after finishing his studies, but his mother was against it. Now, Albert Einstein wanted to marry Maleva, as I told you. They both were in love with each other. Soon after, he finished his studies, but his mother, Pauline Einstein, was against. What was the name of Albert Einstein's mother? Pauline. Pauline Einstein was against this. She thought Maleva, who was 3 years older than her son, was too old for him. Now, what Pauline thought? He thought that Maleva Merrick, who was 3 years elder to Albert Einstein, was very old for him. Now, she was also bothered by Maleva's intelligence. She is a book like you. His mother said, Einstein, put the wedding off. Now, what she said, what Pauline said to her son, Albert Einstein, that Pauline thought that Maleva was very intelligent to be a wife, and she told Einstein that Maleva was also like a book and was similar to him. Now, what is the change? Now, as his mother was against this marriage, he cancelled his wedding with Maleva. At last, the pair finally married in January 1903 and had 2 sons. Now, Albert Einstein married the same girl, Maleva Merrick, in the year 1903 and they had 2 sons. But a few years later, the marriage faltered. What is faltered? Became weak. Alright. So, their marriage failed. Maleva, meanwhile, was losing her intellectual ambition and becoming an unhappy housewife. As Maleva Merrick was very intelligent, so being a housewife, she could not cope up with her ambitions. I told you that she was very good in, physics and other things. So she could not fulfill her ambitions and so she started becoming unhappy. Now, after years of constant fighting, the couple finally divorced in 1919. Now, Maleva was unhappy from this marriage life, so she could not fulfill her career dreams. So finally, in the year 1919, after prolonged fighting, a long fighting, both of them separated. Einstein married his cousin Elsa the same year. Okay. Now, at the same time, Einstein married Elsa also. Another thing, considered that the second thing was Einstein's race to world fame, and Einstein became world famous. Everyone acknowledged him as a great scientist. Now, in 1915, he had published his general theory of relativity. In which year? 1915, which provided a new interpretation of gravity. In the year 1915, what he published? He published the general theory of relativity, now which gave new interpretation to gravity. Now, an eclipse of the sun in 1919 brought proof that it was accurate. Now, in 1919, there was a solar eclipse which provided that Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity was correct. Einstein had correctly calculated in advance the extent to which the light from fixed stars would be deflected through the sun's gravitational field. The newspaper proclaimed his work as a scientific revolution. Now, Albert Einstein has calculated in the year 1915 that in the year 1919 there would be a solar eclipse. Alright. He already predicted in 1915 that in 1919 there would be a solar eclipse, and due to it, the apparent position of the stars would change to some extent. His calculation was accurate. So, it was announced that Albert Einstein's work was a scientific revolution. Now, Einstein received the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. Nobel Prize was based on the will of famous Swedish scientist, a scientist who belonged to Sweden, Alfred Nobel. He was established in 1895. Alright, and the first Nobel Prize was given in the year 1901. And who was awarded with that Nobel Prize? Albert Einstein. In which year? In 1921. He was showered with honors and invitations from all over the world and lauded by the press. Now, he was honored and he was invited to various places from all over the world. Even the press praised him. Press means media. Now, when the Nazis came to power in Germany, In 1933, Einstein immigrated to the United States. Immigrated means, children, when a person leave one's own country in order to settle permanently in other. Alright, that is called immigrated. So in 1933, when Germany came under the power of Nazis, who were Nazis? The famous Nazi ruler was Adolf Hitler. At that time, Einstein left Germany and shifted to United States of America forever. Yes. 5 years later, 5 years later, the discovery of nuclear fission in Berlin had American physicists in an uproar. Now, after 5 years, the Germans discovered the process of nuclear fission, the process through which nuclear bombs or atomic bombs are made. And due to this, all the physicians, America was upset. Alright, at something worst is going to take place. Now, many of them had fled from fascism just as Einstein had. And now they were afraid the Nazis could build and use an atomic bomb. Now, there were many scientists who escaped to America because of fascism. Fascism was, what is fascism? Fascism was a dictatorial concept which was started in Europe from Italy by the rule of Benito Mussolini. All the scientists were afraid that the Nazis could misuse the atomic bomb. Now, at the urging of a colleague, Einstein wrote a letter to the American President Franklin D. Roosevelt on 2nd August 1939, in which he warned a single bomb of this type exploded in a poor might very well destroy the whole part together with some of the surrounding territory. Now, Albert Einstein was requested by a colleague, all right, and so that he wrote a letter to the President of America, Franklin D. Roosevelt, on 2nd August 1939, and he warned him that the atomic bomb which was developed by Germany was very powerful. If one of these bombs exploded on any board, it would not only destroy the area but also it would destroy the surrounding territory also. Now, this shows Einstein's humanitarian quality. He wanted good for the people. He wanted a peace in the world. That is why he wrote his concern to the President of America and warned him. His words did not fail to have an effect. Albert Einstein's letter had an impact on Franklin, the President of America. The Americans developed the atomic bomb in a secret project of their own and dropped it on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. Now, the Americans developed the atomic bomb secretly. They also developed the atomic bomb secretly and they dropped it on two cities of Japan. One is Hiroshima and the second is Nagasaki. So, the Germans had just developed the atomic bomb. They did not use it on any country, but America did. Just see. Now, Einstein was deeply shaken by the extent of the destruction. A lot of destruction took place and Einstein was shaken. Now, this time he wrote a public missive to the United Nations. What is missive? Missive is a letter, especially long, an official letter. He wrote an official letter to the United Nations organization. Now, in it, he proposed the formation of a world government. Unlike the letters to Roosevelt, this one made no impact. Now, Albert Einstein proposed to form a world government, but this letter did not bear any fruit. But over the next decades, Einstein got more involved in politics, agitation for an end to the arms build-up and unceasing popularity to campaign for peace and democracy. Now, for another 10 years, Albert Einstein was involved in world peace. He was involved in politics and his agenda was what? To stop the countries involved in collecting arms and developing weapons. He campaigned for world peace and democracy also. Now, his main agenda was world peace and freedom of people. Yes. Einstein could foresee the future when he died in 1955 at the age of 76. The world celebrated him as a visionary. He was a world citizen and a scientific genius too. Hope you all like the chapter. Go through the chapter by your own. Explanation part is already done. But if you have any problem in any of the paragraph, please contact and let us know. Now in next slide, I'll be providing you another video, another PPT and PDF of exercise also. Hope you all like this explanation of the chapter. Have a good day.